I was sitting on the couch when the front door opened. I thought it was Daniel coming home from work. I even smiled for a second, out of habit. But then I saw her. Vanessa. She stepped in beside him like she belonged there. Like she had always belonged there. Her hand rested lightly in his, fingers curled in a way that made my stomach drop. Daniel didn't look nervous. He didn't hesitate. "Kate," he said, calm as ever. "We need to talk." My heart started pounding. Why is she here? Vanessa didn't answer. She just watched me, almost amused. Daniel sighed, like I was the problem. "I'm leaving. Vanessa and I we're together." The room felt smaller. "And she's pregnant," he added. I stared at him, then at her. She didn't deny it. She didn't even look embarrassed. Then Daniel said the part that broke something inside me. "I've already transferred the house into my name. You'll need to move out in a few days." I couldn't breathe. 10 years. Gone in one sentence. Vanessa tilted her head slightly, studying me. And that's when I noticed it. She wasn't surprised by anything. She wasn't waiting for his decisions. She already knew everything. The next night, I still went to the company dinner. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it for myself. Maybe I didn't want to feel like I had already lost. The restaurant was full. People laughed, glasses clinked, conversations blended together. It felt normal. Too normal. Then Daniel walked in. With Vanessa. He didn't even try to hide it. "Everyone," he said, smiling like nothing had happened. "This is Vanessa?" Some people looked at me. Others looked away. I stayed seated, gripping my glass so hard my fingers hurt. Vanessa stood beside him, calm and polished. "I've heard so much about all of you," she said sweetly. When she looked at me, her smile changed. Just slightly. "Kate," she added, "you must be proud of what Daniel built." Built. Like I hadn't been part of it. I didn't respond. Later, I stepped outside for air. That's when I heard two executives talking behind me. "Rail owner isn't even him anymore," one said. "What do you mean?" the other asked. "Things changed recently." My heart skipped. Changed how? I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at old folders, trying to make sense of everything. Daniel had always handled the big deals, but I handled the structure, the paperwork, the foundation. I knew what we built. Or, at least, I thought I did. I pulled out an old binder from years ago. Our early documents. The ones we signed when the company was just an idea and a loan we barely qualified for. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. There it was. My name. Clear as day. Co-founder. I swallowed hard and opened my laptop. I searched the current filings. Daniel's name showed up. Mine didn't. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A glitch. But then I checked again. Still gone. My chest tightened. That's when I noticed something else. A missing file. There was supposed to be a contract attached to one of the filings. I remembered it clearly. But it wasn't there. It had been removed. And suddenly, nothing felt like an accident anymore. The next morning, I drove to a print shop we used years ago. They kept archives of old documents. I wasn't even sure they'd still have what I needed. But they did. The woman at the counter handed me a copy of our original incorporation papers. I sat in my car and opened it slowly. My name was right there. Kate. Co-founder. Equal ownership. I felt something shift inside me. Not relief. Not yet. But something steadier. Then I pulled up the most recent filing again on my phone. Daniel's name only. I compared the dates. That's when my stomach dropped. The change had been filed 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. That meant this didn't happen suddenly. This was planned. I stared at the paper in my hands. He hadn't just left me. He had erased me. And, the worst part? He thought I wouldn't notice. I called a lawyer that afternoon. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too calm. His name was Mark Caldwell. He listened without interrupting while I explained everything. When I finished, there was a pause. "If what you're saying is accurate," he said carefully, "this could be fraud." The word hit harder than I expected. Could be? I asked. "If you didn't sign those documents and your name was removed without consent, yes." I closed my eyes. Fraud. Not just betrayal. A crime. Mark continued. Do you have proof of your original ownership? Yes. Good. That's a start. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. So what happens now? I asked. Another pause. Then he said something that changed everything. That depends. Do you want your life back? He hesitated just slightly. Or, do you want him to lose his? For the first time since Daniel walked through that door, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Vanessa came by the house the next day. She didn't knock loudly, just enough to be polite. When I opened the door, she smiled like we were old friends. I thought I'd check on you, she said. I stepped aside slowly, letting her in. She walked through the living room like she was already imagining where her things would go. You should start packing, she added casually. It'll make things easier. For who? I asked. For everyone, she said sweetly. Then she lowered her voice. Daniel doesn't need complications right now. I stared at her. You mean me? She didn't deny it. Instead, she handed me an envelope.
Formal notice, she said.
Just to keep things clean.
Clean.
Like this was just business. As she turned to leave, she added, almost absent-mindedly, the transfer cleared faster than expected anyway. I froze. What transfer? I asked. She stopped for a second, then smiled again. Oh, she said lightly, just company stuff. But her eyes said something else. She knew more than she should. That night, I opened my laptop again. This time, I wasn't looking at old memories. I was looking for patterns. I logged into the company accounts I still had access to. Not everything was locked yet. Daniel had always assumed I wouldn't dig. He was wrong. At first, everything looked normal. Payroll, vendor payments, routine expenses. Then I noticed something small. A transfer that didn't fit. It wasn't large enough to stand out, but it didn't match any vendor I recognized. I clicked into it. The name meant nothing to me. I searched again. More transfers. Same name. Spread out over weeks. Careful. Quiet. My chest tightened. This wasn't random. Someone was moving money. Slowly enough to avoid attention, but not carefully enough to disappear completely. I followed the trail as far as I could. It led to an account I didn't recognize. No company attached. Just numbers. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. This wasn't just about me anymore. Something else was happening, and I was just starting to see it. I went to see Daniel the next day. He was in his office, exactly where he always sat. Like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't been erased. What are you doing here? He asked. I held up the documents. You removed me from the company. He leaned back, unimpressed. We handled that already.
We.
You signed the papers, he said simply. I felt my chest tighten. No, I didn't. He opened a drawer and pulled out a file. Then he slid a page across the desk. I looked down. My name was there. My signature.
Perfect.
Too perfect. I knew my own handwriting. This wasn't it. You're lying, I said quietly. He shook his head. You're emotional. That's all this is. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I had built everything with. And suddenly, I didn't recognize him anymore. Get out, Kate, he said. I didn't argue. But as I walked out, I knew one thing for sure. He thought this was over. It wasn't. Mark confirmed it the same day. It's forged, he said after reviewing the document. I let out a slow breath. So what now? He leaned forward slightly. Proving it is the hard part. We'll need experts.
Time.
Documentation. And in the meantime? He's already filed for eviction, Mark said. Of course he had. I nodded slowly. So, he pushes me out, takes the company, and hopes I just disappear. That's the idea, Mark said. I sat there for a moment. Then I said something that surprised even me. I'm not going to fight him yet. Mark raised an eyebrow. Explain. I need to understand everything first, I said. All of it. Because this wasn't just about a signature anymore. It was about timing. About Vanessa. About those transfers. Something bigger was happening. And if I moved too soon, I'd miss it. Mark studied me for a second, then nodded. All right, he said. But be careful. I stood up. Careful wasn't the word anymore. Focused was. I started packing the next day.
Slowly.
Quietly. I didn't argue with Daniel. I didn't push back. I let him believe I had accepted everything. Vanessa loved it. She came by again, this time more relaxed, more confident. "You're handling this well," she said, watching me fold clothes. I didn't respond. She walked through the house like it was already hers. I let her, because while she was looking at the walls, I was watching her, listening, learning. Every time she spoke, she revealed something small. A detail she shouldn't know. A decision she wasn't supposed to be part of. And every night after they left, I went through files, copying everything I could still access. Emails,
Statements.
records. I saved them to a drive Daniel didn't know existed. He thought I was walking away. He thought I was done. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed.
Not this time.
There was one place I hadn't checked yet. An old shared drive. We used it years ago before everything moved to newer systems. Daniel probably forgot it even existed.
I didn't.
It took a while to access. Old passwords. Security questions I barely remembered. But eventually I got in. And what I found made my stomach turn. Emails.
Dozens of them.
Between Daniel and Vanessa. Going back months. I opened the first one. Then the next. Then another. They weren't just about work. They were planning. Talking about timing. About transitions. About handling things carefully. I scrolled faster. My chest tightened. This wasn't a sudden affair. This was strategy. Calculated. Deliberate. Then one line stopped me cold. Vanessa had written, "Don't worry. Once everything is in place, we won't need her anymore." Her.
Me.
I stared at the screen, and then I saw something worse. A message that didn't fit the rest. A different tone. Like she wasn't just talking to Daniel. Like she had another plan entirely. I went deeper into the emails. The more I read, the clearer it became. Vanessa wasn't just involved. She was leading, suggesting changes, pushing decisions, guiding Daniel step by step. He thought he was in control. He wasn't. One email stood out. It mentioned a new partner company. A deal Daniel had been excited about. I remembered it. He said it would take the business to the next level. I searched the name. My heart skipped. Vanessa was connected to it. Not publicly. Not directly. But the links were there. Hidden through layers. She hadn't just entered our lives. She had positioned herself.
Carefully.
Strategically. I leaned back, trying to process it. This wasn't just betrayal. This was infiltration. And Daniel had walked straight into it. A week later, things started going wrong. I didn't have full access anymore, but I could still see enough. Payments delayed. Contracts falling through. Unusual expenses. At first, it looked like bad luck. Then it became a pattern. The same accounts I had noticed earlier, they were getting more active. More money. Faster transfers. I watched it happen in real time.
Daniel didn't see it yet.
Or maybe he didn't want to. But I did. And the truth settled in slowly. Vanessa wasn't just helping him take over the company. She was draining it.
Piece by piece.
Right in front of him. And he had no idea. Daniel showed up at my apartment late one evening. I hadn't expected it. Not after everything. He looked tired. Not polished like before. His tie was loose. His eyes restless.
"We need to talk," he said.
I stepped aside, letting him in without a word. He looked around the small space like it didn't make sense to him. Like this wasn't where I was supposed to be. "What's going on with the company?" he asked. I crossed my arms. "You tell me." He ran a hand through his hair. "Accounts aren't lining up. Payments are off. Something's wrong." For a moment, I just watched him. This was the first crack. The first time he didn't have control. "And you came to me?" I asked. He hesitated. "You handled the books. You'd know if something was off." I almost laughed. Now I was useful again. "I don't work there anymore," I said calmly. He looked at me like he wanted to say more. But instead, he just stood there, waiting. "You said you didn't need me," I told him. My voice was steady. That surprised even me. Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, then stopped. For the first time, He didn't have an answer. I didn't mean it like that, he said finally. I tilted my head. Then how did you mean it? He opened his mouth, closed it again. Silence filled the room. Then his phone rang. Vanessa. He answered immediately. What? I watched his face change as he listened. Confusion. Then irritation. Then something sharper. I told you not to move anything without checking, he snapped. I leaned against the counter, listening without trying to hide it. His voice dropped.
No.
Don't touch anything else. I'll handle it. He hung up and looked at me. She says it's just a timing issue, he said. I didn't respond, because I already knew it wasn't. And deep down, I think he knew it too. The next few days, things moved fast. I didn't see Daniel again, but I watched everything from a distance. Transfers increased. Larger amounts. Closer together. It wasn't subtle anymore. Vanessa wasn't hiding it. She was rushing. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just moving money. She was preparing to leave. I went back through the emails, the accounts, the patterns. It all lined up. Every step had been leading to this. Daniel thought he was building something new with her. But she had been building an exit. And now she was almost ready. I sat there, staring at the screen. If I was right, then everything was about to fall apart. Not slowly. Not quietly. All at once. I found the proof 2 nights later. It took hours of cross-checking accounts, tracing transfers, following small details most people would miss. But it was there, hidden through layers of accounts. Offshore. Not illegal on the surface, but clearly structured to move money out of reach. My breath caught. This wasn't small. This wasn't a mistake.
It was a full exit plan.
Vanessa had been draining the company for months. And the total? Enough to destroy everything Daniel had built. Everything we had built. I leaned back in my chair, heart racing. This was the final piece. The truth Daniel refused to see. The truth Vanessa was counting on him missing. For a moment, I just sat there. Then I reached for my phone. Because now I had a choice. Stay silent. Or make sure this didn't stay hidden.
I didn't call Daniel.
I called the company accountant. I kept my voice neutral.
Calm.
I think you should take a closer look at recent transfers, I said. There was a pause on the other end. What kind of transfers? The ones that don't belong. I didn't explain more. I didn't need to. People like him didn't ignore things like that. Within days, the audit started. Quiet at first. Internal. Careful.
But I knew it wouldn't stay that way.
Because once someone started pulling on that thread, everything would come undone. Vanessa must have sensed it too. Because the transfer stopped.
Suddenly. Abruptly.
Like someone had hit a switch. I stared at the screen. Too late. The damage was already done. The explosion came faster than I expected. Daniel called Vanessa into his office. I didn't see it, but I heard about it from someone still inside. Voices raised. Doors closed. Then silence. The audit had uncovered discrepancies. Large ones. Unexplained transfers. Missing funds. Vanessa denied everything.
Of course she did.
She always stayed calm under pressure. Always had an answer. But this time, the numbers didn't match her words. And Daniel couldn't ignore it anymore. For the first time, he was forced to see what was right in front of him. The truth. But by then, it was already too late. Vanessa disappeared that night. No warning. No explanation. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her apartment was empty.
Gone.
Just like that. I heard about it the next morning. Daniel had gone to see her. There was nothing left. No clothes. No furniture. No trace. Just a clean space where she used to be. And the accounts?
Drained.
Every dollar she could move.
Gone.
I sat quietly when I heard the news. No satisfaction. Not yet. Just a quiet understanding. This was the moment everything changed. Daniel had chosen her. Trusted her. Built his future around her. And she had taken everything. Exactly like she planned. The company didn't recover. It couldn't. Once the audit expanded, more problems surfaced. Regulators got involved. Accounts were frozen. Contracts were suspended. Daniel's reputation collapsed almost overnight. People who used to respect him stopped calling. Stopped answering. He went from powerful to isolated in a matter of weeks. I watched it all from a distance. Not out of revenge, but because I needed to understand how far it would go. And then one evening, he called me. I didn't answer, but I knew what it meant. He had run out of options. He came to my apartment again. This time, he didn't look confident. He looked desperate. "I need your help," he said the moment I opened the door. I didn't invite him in right away. "Why?" I asked. "Because you know the system," he said quickly. "You built it with me. Built it." The words sounded different now. "I can't fix this alone," he added. I studied him for a long moment. This was the same man who told me to leave. The same man who said he didn't need me. And now, he was standing here, asking, "Do you even know what happened?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "That's why I'm here." I stepped aside and let him in, because it was finally time. I told him everything. Not emotionally, not angrily, just facts. The forged documents, the transfers, the offshore accounts, Vanessa's plan,
Piece by piece.
I watched his face as it all sank in. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something heavier, regret. "You knew?" he asked. "I figured it out," I said. "And you didn't tell me?" I held his gaze. "You didn't listen when it mattered." He looked away. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "You could destroy me with this." I didn't deny it, because it was true. And for the first time, he knew it too. "I'll help you," I said. He looked up quickly. "But not for you," I added. His expression shifted. "Then why?" "For me," I said. "And for what I built." I laid out my terms clearly. My name restored. Full legal protection. Control over financial recovery. No arguments. No delays. He listened without interrupting, because he couldn't afford to. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said.
Just like that.
No negotiation. No resistance. The balance of power had shifted completely. And we both knew it. 6 months later, everything looked different. The company still existed. But it wasn't the same. It was cleaner, smaller, stronger. My name was back where it belonged. On every document. At the top. Daniel was still there. But not in control. Not anymore. Vanessa was gone. No one had seen her since. Sometimes I thought about her. About how she walked into our lives so confidently. And how she left just as quickly. Taking everything with her. Everything Daniel thought he had won. I stood in my office one evening, looking out over the city.
Quiet. Steady. Mine.
He had left me for his secretary. And, in the end, she took everything from him. And gave me something I didn't even know I needed. My power back.